Welcome to a new episode of Forge Diaries. This time we will not be in the forge and instead will engage in some light fabrication. I will be creating some brass earring stands based on a design I saw in a jewelry store. My wife is friends with them and they asked if I could make some more for them. The earring stands are made of 1/4 inch thick brass plate and 1/16 inch thick round bar. I don't really have all the right tools for this, so my big metal saw needs to do the cutting job here. After cleaning up the cuts and removing the scale, I want to mount a brass post into the middle of the plate. I'm using my calipers, which are made from hardened steel, to scribe the middle lines. I'm just eyeballing the middle and scribe from both sides. If the lines don't match, I still know that the middle is going to be somewhere in between the two lines I scribed. I plan on hard soldering all the pieces. Since the base plate has so much more material than the thin post, I decided that I needed some mechanical help to attach the two pieces before I solder them. The first step is to countersink the hole and then to upset the round bar. Upsetting in this case means melting the end of the bar, which will form a round bead. My only heat source is a fairly imprecise MAP gas torch. Before I mechanically attach the pieces, I cleaned up the oxides from the post so that they don't interfere with soldering. My limited experience with hard soldering aside, the way to control where the solder flows is by limiting the area that is being fluxed and by temperature control. I'm using old brazing flux here that has dried out on me. The solder starts flowing when the brass is at a dull red temperature. You can see how the solder starts to gleam right before it becomes liquid. To remove the flux, I'm using pickle made from lemon juice and salt. The next step is to solder a crossbar on top of the post. Temperature control with the MAP torch is a little bit more challenging here, as it is quite easy to melt the brass itself. You may remember that brass is used for brazing steel, for example. My flux is pretty chunky, and you will see me applying more than is really needed here, as evidenced by it flowing all over the place once it is heated up. If you watch closely, you will notice that I'm having trouble isolating the heat to the joint, and the solder flows to wherever there is flux. The earrings will hang from little hoops that I will attach to each end of the crossbar. To form small rings, I'm bending the bar around the drill bit that ended up being the size I wanted. I use a wire cutter to cut individual rings from the bar. The end of the rings are not perfectly aligned since they were wound up in a spiral. I'm using a small hammer and a steel plate to get them closer to being in the same plane. While not shown here, I'm also using 2 needle nose pliers to twist the ends so that they end up matching. The crossbars are cleaned up further with some sandpaper. Since all the pieces are so small, I need some helping hands to hold the rings in place while I'm soldering them to the crossbar. The liberal application of flux and heat in this case resulted in soldering the clamp to the ring too. While somewhat irritating, further application of heat took care of it too. Alright, That's all there is to it. Now the pieces just need to be cleaned up. Since I don't have a buffer, I'm using Scotch-Brite belts on my belt center. I need to be somewhat careful here that the belt does not pull the earring stand out of my hand, but that would have been a concern with the buffer too. Here is the final result, adorned with some pretty earrings. If you like these videos, please subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. That's it for now. I will see you next time.